Welcome back to Her Secret Diaries, the place where untold stories find their voice. If you believe that behind every quiet woman is a story the world never bothered to hear, you're in the right place. Here, we uncover the emotions people hide, the truths families ignore, and the moments that change everything. Today's story is about a wife who didn't scream, didn't argue, didn't beg. Instead, she did something no one expected. She left her husband a monthly invoice. When Emily got married, she believed in partnership. Not the kind people post about online. Not the filtered smiles or the anniversary captions. She believed in real partnership. Shared responsibilities. Shared dreams. Shared exhaustion. In the beginning, it felt balanced. Daniel worked long hours at a marketing firm. Emily worked too, part-time at first, then full-time after their first child was born. They both said they wanted equality. They both said they would support each other. But equality has a quiet way of disappearing. It doesn't vanish overnight. It fades in small, unnoticed shifts. The first shift happened after their daughter, Lily, was born. Daniel said he was too tired to wake up at night. Emily understood. He had work in the morning. So she handled the midnight feedings, then the 2 a.m. crying, then the 4 a.m. diaper changes. She was tired too. But no one asked about her morning. Then came the laundry. Daniel once mixed whites with colors and turned everything pink. He laughed about it. After that, Emily said she'd handle laundry. Groceries became her job because she knew what they needed. Doctor's appointments were hers because she was better with details. School forms, birthday gifts, meal planning. Remembering his mother's birthday, scheduling car maintenance, cleaning the bathroom, organizing closets. Buying new shoes when Lily outgrew them, all hers. It didn't feel unfair at first. It felt natural. Until it didn't. Years passed. They had a second child, Noah. Expenses grew. So did responsibilities. Emily moved to full-time remote work to be more available for the kids. That meant she worked from home. Daniel interpreted that as she was home. And being home, in his mind, meant she could handle things. If the plumber needed to come, Emily stayed. If Noah had a fever, Emily canceled meetings. If Lily forgot her lunch, Emily drove to school. If the house was messy, Daniel would say casually, "It's been a long day. I thought you might have had time to tidy up." Not cruel. Just unaware. That was the problem. He wasn't mean. He simply didn't see it. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, Emily sat at the kitchen table, staring at a pile of bills. Electricity, water, mortgage, internet, groceries. Daniel walked in, loosened his tie, and sighed dramatically. "I'm exhausted," he said. "Work is killing me." Emily looked at him. She wanted to say, "Me too." Instead, she asked, "Do you know how much daycare costs per month?" He blinked. "No idea. Why?" "Just wondering." He grabbed a drink and turned on the television. That night, after everyone fell asleep, Emily opened her laptop. She didn't open social media. She opened a spreadsheet. Column A, task. Column B, hours per week. Column C, market rate. Column D, monthly total. Childcare, 40 hours per week at the local babysitter rate. House cleaning, 15 hours per week at professional cleaning rates. Meal planning and cooking, personal chef rates. Laundry service. Personal assistant tasks. Driver. Administrative manager. Night nurse. Emotional support. She researched real numbers. She didn't exaggerate. She calculated. The total shocked even her. Her unpaid labor, if valued at market rates, was worth more than Daniel's salary. She stared at the number for a long time. Then she titled the document, Monthly Household Services Invoice. She printed it. The next morning, she placed it neatly on Daniel's side of the bed. He found it while getting dressed. At first, he laughed. "What's this?" he called out. Emily was in the kitchen making breakfast. "It's an invoice," she replied calmly. "For what?" "For the services I provide monthly." He walked into the kitchen, holding the paper. "This isn't funny, I'm not joking." He scanned the list again. Childcare, $3,200. Cleaning, $1,200. Cooking, $1,500. Laundry, $400. Administrative tasks, $800. Overnight care, $1,000. Transportation services, $600. Emotional labor, $900. Total due, $9,600. "You're charging me?" he asked incredulously. "No," she said softly. "I'm showing you." "Showing me what?" "What it would cost if I stopped." He frowned. "Emily, you're my wife. This is what marriage is." She held his gaze. "Is it?" He didn't answer. He left for work irritated. That evening, he avoided the conversation. The next day too. But something had shifted. On Saturday morning, Lily asked Daniel to braid her hair. He hesitated. "I don't know how," he admitted. Emily watched silently. Lily looked disappointed. Daniel tried anyway. It was messy. Crooked. Lily giggled. That afternoon, Noah spilled juice on the carpet. Daniel called out, "Emily." She didn't move. He cleaned it himself. It took longer than he expected. The following week, Emily sent him a digital version of the invoice. Subject line, "Updated monthly statement." He stormed into her home office. "Are you serious?" "Yes. This is ridiculous." "What part?" "All of it." She closed her laptop slowly. "Daniel, do you know Noah's shoe size?" He hesitated. "No." "Do you know when Lily's parent-teacher meeting is?" Silence. "Do you know the name of Noah's pediatrician?" He looked frustrated. "That's not fair." "Why not?" "Because you handle those things." "Exactly." He ran a hand through his hair. "So, what do you want?" "A thank you." She shook her head. "I want a partner." Weeks passed. The tension in the house was thick. Daniel started noticing things he'd never seen before. The constant picking up of toys. The invisible mental checklist running in Emily's mind. The way she worked on her laptop while stirring soup. The exhaustion in her eyes. One evening, he came home early. Emily was on the couch, asleep, laptop open, laundry unfolded beside her. The kids were watching cartoons quietly. He stood there, watching her. For the first time, he didn't see a wife who stayed home. He saw someone running an entire operation. He picked up the laundry. He folded it, clumsily, slowly. When Emily woke up, she saw him in the kitchen cooking pasta. "You don't have to," she said, confused. "I know." That night, he brought up the invoice. "I showed it to a guy at work," he admitted. Emily raised an eyebrow. He laughed at first. Then he said his wife left him last year. Said she felt invisible. The word hung in the air. Invisible. "Is that how you feel?" He asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. "Sometimes," she whispered. He swallowed hard. The next weekend, Daniel made a list. Not of tasks for Emily. For himself. School drop-offs twice a week. Saturday grocery runs. Laundry on Sundays. Bath time every other night. Handling all correlated appointments. Learning Lily's hair routine. Memorizing Noah's allergies. He taped the list to the fridge. The first month was messy. He forgot things. Burned dinners. Missed a dentist reminder. But he kept trying. At the end of the month, Emily didn't print an invoice. Instead, she printed a different document. Revised Partnership Agreement. He laughed when he saw the title. "What's this one?" She smiled slightly. "It says we both pay. Just differently." The house didn't become perfect overnight. They still argued. Still got tired. But something fundamental had changed. Daniel stopped saying helping you. He started saying doing my part. He no longer referred to childcare as babysitting. He called it parenting. Months later, Emily found the original invoice in a drawer. She held it for a moment. Then she shredded it. Not because it wasn't true, but because it had served its purpose. One evening, Lily asked, "Mom, why does Dad cook now?" Emily smiled. "Because we both live here." Lily nodded as if that made perfect sense. And maybe that was the real victory. Not the invoice, not the argument, but the example, the lesson that partnership isn't automatic, it's intentional. Years later, when Lily went off to college, she called her mother one night. "I broke up with him," she said. "Why?" "He said cleaning wasn't his job." Emily didn't hesitate. "Good," Lily laughed. "I guess I learned something growing up." "Yes," Emily replied softly. "You did." As for Daniel, he sometimes jokes about the most expensive piece of paper he ever received. But deep down, he knows it wasn't about money. It was about value. Because love without recognition slowly turns into resentment. And resentment is far more expensive than any invoice. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, if you've ever carried responsibilities no one noticed, remember this: silence keeps things comfortable, but honesty creates change. Sometimes, it takes a spreadsheet to save a marriage. And sometimes, the bravest thing a woman can do isn't to leave, it's to show the receipt. Thank you for listening to Her Secret Diaries, where the quiet stories speak the loudest. Daniel didn't change in one dramatic moment. There was no cinematic apology, no grand speech in the rain. Change came in small, uncomfortable realizations. The second month after the invoice, Emily didn't send a reminder. She didn't need to. Daniel had started waking up before his alarm. Not because he suddenly loved mornings, but because Noah had a habit of sneaking into their bed at dawn. Before, Daniel would gently nudge the child back toward Emily's side. Now he picked Noah up. He learned that Noah didn't just wake up randomly. He woke up scared of the dark when it rained. He learned that Lily hummed when she brushed her teeth. He learned that the house made different sounds at 5:30 a.m. He learned things he had never taken the time to notice. One Tuesday afternoon, Daniel's boss asked him to stay late for an urgent presentation. Old Daniel would have said yes immediately. New Daniel checked his phone. Soccer practice. 6 p.m. his night to drive. He hesitated, not because he didn't want to go home, but because for the first time, he felt the weight of choice. "I can't tonight," he said carefully. "I have to pick up my son." There was silence on the other end. "Since when?" his boss asked. "Since always," Daniel replied, surprising even himself. At home, Emily noticed something subtle. Daniel wasn't just doing tasks. He was anticipating them. He replaced the empty toilet paper roll without being told. He restocked diapers before they ran out. He texted her during the day. Did Lily need poster board for her project? It wasn't perfect. One evening, after a stressful week, Daniel slipped. The kitchen was messy. Dishes in the sink. Toys scattered across the living room. He walked in and said, almost reflexively, "Wow, rough day." Emily froze. The old frustration flickered in her eyes. Daniel caught it instantly. He closed his mouth. He corrected himself. Setting his bag down. "Let's clean this up together." It was a small recovery. But it mattered. Because before, he wouldn't have noticed the tone. One night, months after the first invoice, Emily sat alone again at the kitchen table. But this time, there was no spreadsheet open. She was writing a letter she never planned to send. "Dear Invisible Woman," she began. She wrote about the years she felt unseen. About loving someone and slowly losing pieces of herself. About how resentment creeps in quietly, like water under a door. She wrote about the fear that asking for help would make her seem ungrateful. She wrote about how exhausting it is to carry both the physical and mental weight of a household. Then she stopped, because the truth had shifted. She wasn't invisible anymore. The invoice had done something unexpected. It hadn't just confronted Daniel, it had confronted her. It forced her to acknowledge her own value, to put a number to her time, to admit that she deserved partnership, not silent endurance. One Saturday morning, Daniel surprised her. He handed her an envelope. Her stomach tightened for a split second. Inside was a printed document. Title: Monthly Appreciation Statement. She looked at him, confused. He smiled sheepishly. It wasn't money, it was a list. Hours you spend working. He had calculated. Hours you spend parenting. Things I never noticed before. At the bottom, instead of a total due, it said, paid in gratitude. Owed in respect. She laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was tender. I'm serious, he said. I know, but growth isn't linear. 3 months later, Daniel got a promotion. More money. More responsibility. Longer hours. The old patterns threatened to return. Late nights. Missed dinners. I have a lot on my plate, he said one evening. Emily looked at him carefully. So do I. There. It was again the crossroads. He could lean back into old habits, or lean forward into partnership. That night, instead of dismissing her words, he asked, how do we adjust? That word mattered more than any apology. They sat down with a calendar. They redistributed tasks again. They discussed hiring a cleaner. Twice a month, they created a shared digital list for groceries and appointments. They talked, not defensively, but strategically, because marriage, they realized, wasn't static. It required recalibration. One afternoon, Lily came home from school upset. A boy said girls are better at cleaning, she said angrily. Daniel looked up from the sink where he was washing dishes. What did you say? He asked. I told him that's stupid, she replied. Dad cleans. Daniel smiled quietly. Emily felt something soften inside her. The lesson had extended beyond them. Years earlier, Emily had considered leaving. Not dramatically, just in quiet moments. When the imbalance felt permanent, she had imagined what it would be like to live alone with the kids. To control her own time. To not feel resentful every time someone dropped socks beside the hamper. But she hadn't wanted to leave. She wanted to be seen. The invoice wasn't a threat. It was a mirror, and Daniel had finally looked into it. On their 15th anniversary, Daniel planned something different. Not a fancy restaurant, not jewelry. He booked her a weekend alone at a small lakeside cabin. No kids? She asked skeptically. No kids, he confirmed. No cooking. No planning. No packing. I handled everything. When she arrived, there was a folder on the table. Inside were printed copies of the first 3 invoices she had given him years ago. She raised an eyebrow when he called her that evening. Why did you bring these? She asked. Because that's when I almost lost you, he said honestly. She was silent. I didn't see it then, he continued. But I see it now. That was your last attempt to talk to me before you stopped trying. She exhaled slowly. He wasn't wrong. That invoice had been her final form of communication before detachment. I'm glad you didn't stop trying, he added. So am I, she whispered. When she returned home Sunday night, the house wasn't spotless, but it was functioning. The kids were fed. Homework done. Laundry folded. Daniel looked tired. See? He grinned. I survived. She hugged him longer than usual, because survival wasn't the goal anymore. Partnership was. As the years passed, the story of the invoice became a quiet legend. Among their friends, one couple asked Emily for advice during a rough patch. The wife felt overwhelmed. The husband felt unappreciated. Emily didn't give them a lecture. She handed her friend a blank spreadsheet. Template. Start here, she said. The husband rolled his eyes at first, just like Daniel had. But sometimes, numbers speak louder than emotions. Eventually, Daniel started mentoring younger men at work. Not about finances, about balance. You can't outsource respect, he told them once during lunch. If she's doing everything, she's not your partner. She's your employee. And trust me, that bill will come due. They laughed. But he wasn't joking. One evening, long after the kids had grown older, Emily found Daniel staring at the old shredded invoice pieces she had saved in a small box. "You kept those?" she asked. "Yeah," he admitted. Reminder of what? That love isn't automatic. It's maintained. She sat beside him. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "I never wanted your money. I know. I wanted your effort." He nodded. "And you got it," he replied. She smiled, not because everything had been perfect, but because it had been honest. And honesty, even uncomfortable honesty, had saved them. If there's a lesson in this story, it isn't that every marriage needs an invoice. It's that silence protects imbalance. Resentment grows in the space where appreciation should live. Emily didn't scream, she didn't threaten, she calculated. And sometimes, the most powerful statement a woman can make isn't emotional. It's undeniable. She didn't leave him a goodbye letter. She left him a breakdown of reality, and he chose to rise to it because, in the end, marriage isn't about who earns more, it's about who carries more, and whether they're willing to shift the weight. Thank you for being here at Her Secret Diaries, where even the quietest actions can change the loudest problems.